What happens when the most dangerous man in Chicago meets the one woman who isn't afraid of him or his demonic toddler? She wasn't a supermodel. She was a broke, overweight maid who just needed rent money. But one unexpected kiss from a violent toddler changed the criminal underworld forever. Vincent Romano was a man who traded in fear. As the undisputed head of the Chicago syndicate, he controlled shipping ports, politicians, and union bosses from the Gold Coast down to the gritty South Side. He wore bespoke Brioni suits, checked the time on a $100,000 Patek Philippe, and could end a man's life with a subtle nod. Yet the most powerful man in Illinois was currently being held hostage by a 2-year-old, his son, Leo. Since the car bombing that took Leo's mother a year ago, a hit meant for Vincent, the boy had transformed from a happy infant into a miniature terror. The grief and chaos of the Romano household had manifested in Leo as pure, unadulterated rage. He didn't just cry, he destroyed. In the past 6 weeks alone, Leo had terrorized 5 highly qualified elite nannies. He threw heavy wooden blocks, shattered antique vases, and just yesterday he had bitten Nanny Greta so hard on the forearm that she required a trip to Northwestern Memorial Hospital for stitches. Greta had run out of the Highland Park mansion in tears, threatening a lawsuit, despite the hefty stack of $100 bills Vincent's enforcer Sal had shoved into her purse. Vincent sat behind his massive mahogany desk, rubbing his temples. The house was dead silent, save for the distant muffled screams of his son down the east wing. He needed someone tough, someone who wouldn't break. Miles away in a cramped, mold-infested apartment in Pilsen, Ruby Jenkins was just trying to breathe. She sat on the edge of her sagging mattress, clutching a past-due eviction notice in her plump, trembling hands. Ruby was 24, standing 5'4", and weighing 250 pounds. Society had never been kind to her. She was used to the sideways glances on the CTA bus, the cruel whispers in the grocery store aisles, and the constant crushing weight of feeling invisible unless she was being judged. But right now, her weight was the least of her worries. Her father had passed away from lung cancer 6 months ago, leaving behind a mountain of medical debt. Desperate to keep him in a decent hospice, Ruby had taken a loan from a neighborhood shark named Mickey Sullivan. Now Mickey wanted his money. With interest, she was working 3 jobs, cleaning a diner at dawn, stocking shelves at a pharmacy in the afternoon, and doing laundry for a cheap motel at night. But it wasn't enough. She needed a miracle. Her phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Hastings from the elite domestic placement agency. Ruby had been begging her for a high-paying residential job for weeks. "Ruby," Mrs. Hastings's voice crackled, sounding strained. "I have a placement. It's unconventional. It's an emergency hire for a very wealthy, very private client in Highland Park. The pay is 4 times the standard rate, paid in cash weekly." Ruby's heart hammered against her ribs. 4 times the rate that would pay off Mickey in 2 months. "I'll take it. Whatever it is, I'll take it." "Listen to me carefully, dear," Mrs. Hastings warned. "The client is demanding. The child is difficult, and the environment is intense. The last girl left in an ambulance. Are you sure?" "I've survived cleaning the fryers at Pete's Diner at 3 a.m., Ruby said, forcing a nervous laugh. "I can handle a rich kid." 2 hours later, Ruby stepped off the metro train and walked the half-mile to the address provided. She was sweating profusely in her best, albeit faded, navy blue thrift store dress. The fabric clung tightly to her broad hips and thick thighs, and her worn-out flats offered 0 support. When she finally arrived at the wrought-iron gates, she gasped. It wasn't just a house, it was a fortress. 10-foot stone walls surrounded the property, topped with discreet security cameras, Two massive men in dark suits, bulging with obvious concealed weapons, stood by the guardhouse. "Name," the larger one, grunted his cold eyes, scanning her soft, heavy frame with blatant skepticism. "Ah, Ruby Jenkins. The agency sent me." The guard murmured into a radio strapped to his shoulder. After a tense pause, the heavy iron gates swung open with a mechanical hum. "Go straight to the main doors. Don't wander the grounds." Ruby nodded, clutching her worn faux leather purse to her chest. As she walked up the sweeping driveway, flanked by perfectly manicured hedges and a fountain, she felt entirely out of place. She was a fat, broke girl from the slums walking into a palace. She expected a butler to greet her. Instead, the heavy oak doors were pulled open by another man in a suit, this one with a jagged scar running down his jawline. "In here," he commanded, leading her down a hallway lined with priceless oil paintings. He opened a door to a sprawling library and gestured for her to step inside. "The boss will be right with you." Ruby stood in the center of the room, too terrified to sit on the pristine white leather sofas. She wiped her sweaty palms on her dress, trying to slow her breathing. The door clicked open behind her. Vincent Romano walked into the library, bringing the temperature of the room down by 10 degrees. He was devastatingly handsome, with jet-black hair slightly silvering at the temples, sharp cheekbones and dark assessing eyes that missed absolutely nothing. He stopped a few feet away, folding his arms across his broad chest. His gaze swept over Ruby. He took in her flushed, round face, the tight fit of her cheap dress, the way she shifted uncomfortably from one worn shoe to the other. Vincent was a man who dealt in efficiency and peak performance. The woman standing before him looked like she would be out of breath climbing a single flight of stairs. "You're the replacement." Vincent's voice was a low, gravelly baritone that sent a shiver down Ruby's spine. It wasn't a question. It was a judgment. "Yes, sir. Ruby Jenkins," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Vincent sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Mrs. Hastings is wasting my time. I asked for someone resilient, someone fast. My son is 2 years old, but he has the energy of a wild animal and the temper of a cornered dog. He requires constant chasing, physical restraint at times, and hypervigilance. Miss Jenkins, with all due respect to your situation, you do not look physically capable of keeping up with him." The word stung, hitting Ruby in her deepest insecurity, but she was too desperate to cry. She needed this money. Mickey's thugs had followed her home last night. If she didn't get this job, she was dead anyway. Ruby squared her heavy shoulders, lifting her chin. "Mr. Romano, I may not be built like a track star, but I am strong. I've worked on my feet my entire life. I don't break, I don't quit, and I'm not afraid of hard work. Or tantrums." Vincent raised a dark eyebrow, mildly amused by her sudden burst of defiance. Usually people stuttered and shrank in his presence. Before he could dismiss her, a blood-curdling scream echoed down the marble hallway. The heavy library doors burst open. Little Leo, a beautiful boy with curly black hair and his father's dark eyes, ran in. He was a hurricane of destruction. He had a heavy, solid-wood toy train engine in his hand. Behind him, a panicked maid was trying to catch him, but Leo was too fast. "No, no, I hate it!" Leo shrieked, his face red and streaked with angry tears. He hurled the heavy wooden train engine blindly into the room. It flew directly toward Ruby. Vincent lunged forward, yelling a warning, but it was too late. The heavy wood struck Ruby hard on the collarbone. It was a vicious hit, enough to make a grown man curse. A sharp gasp escaped her lips, and she stumbled back a half-step, clutching her chest. Vincent prepared for the inevitable. The tears, the screaming, the immediate resignation. The last nanny had called the police over a tossed sippy cup. But Ruby didn't scream. She didn't cry. She took a deep breath, wincing slightly, as the pain bloomed across her collarbone, and then she did something no one in that house had done in a year. She dropped to her knees. It was a heavy, ungraceful movement, but it put her exactly at eye level with the furious toddler. Leo stopped dead in his tracks, panting, his little fists clenched. He stared at the large woman, kneeling on his father's expensive Persian rug. He was waiting for her to yell. He was waiting for her to grab him, to drag him away, to look at him, with the same fear and frustration everyone else did. "Well," Ruby said softly, her voice remarkably calm and coated in a warm, honeyed southern drawl she'd inherited from her grandmother. "That was a mighty big throw for such a little guy. Are you trying out for the Cubs, or are you